want to be an entrepreneur at some point in their life? Raise your hand. Higher, be proud, come on. Awesome, okay, so like half of you, that's awesome. All right. I'm gonna start with a story. Tom Sawyer, he gets in trouble, and as punishment, he has to paint this fence. He wants to go swimming, but he's stuck painting this fence, and all his friends start laughing at him. Who remembers the story? Yes. I'm going to read you a section from it. I think we read it in third grade. All of a sudden, a light bulb goes off in Tom's head. He says, "What do you mean I'm working? I reckon there ain't a boy in 1,000, maybe 2,000, that can do it the way it's got to be done." Ben starts watching every move, getting more and more absorbed, more and more interested as he lays every brushstroke of paint down. He speaks up. "Tom, let me paint a little." Tom responds, "Ben, I'd like to, honest. But Jim wanted to do it and she wouldn't let Jim. And then Sid wanted to do it and she wouldn't let Sid." Ben begs, "Please, I'll give you my apple." One by one, the boys bring Tom their marbles, a kite, a dog collar, a cat with one eye, all of their treasures, in exchange for getting to paint this fence. The fence ends up getting 3 coats of paint, and if Tom hadn't run out of paint, he would have bankrupted every boy in that village. Tom discovered a great law of human action. To make someone covet a thing, it is only necessary to make that thing difficult to attain. It will be 4 months and 12 days before I turn 30. And so today, I'm here to tell you the most important thing that I learned in my 20s. Or really, the most important thing I unlearned in my 20s. I remember the first time I heard those wise and haunting words, "Do what you love." The key to happiness is to do what you're passionate about. I was 18 years old when I listened to Steve Jobs' commencement speech. I'm sure many of you have heard it. I've heard the advice a lot since. It's become an anthem of our generation. I remember thinking it sounded like an ideal way to live, but it left out the fact that I didn't know what I was actually passionate about. I didn't know how to find that. And it left out the details on the how. Other than that, it takes courage. I didn't have my what, and I didn't feel particularly courageous. So instead, I focused on being like one of Tom's friends. I focused on achieving things that were really difficult to achieve. And I was sure that if I did things that impressed people with how smart and talented I am, then one day, when I figured out what it was that I was actually passionate about, I'd have the credentials, skills, and confidence to make it happen. That thing that I was head over heels in love with, yeah, that didn't hit me. And honestly, I think I was too busy achieving to have noticed if it did. We live in a culture that values productivity above all else. The most common response that I get from my friends when I ask, "How are you?" Do you know what I'm saying? It's, "I'm good, I'm busy." Busy has become synonymous with, "I'm doing well, I'm feeling good, I'm a badass." It's expected, it's a badge of honor, and it's become the norm. See, I believed the myth that if we deny the things that we enjoy doing, and instead, busy exercising self-discipline, that I would ultimately find happiness. But this is a trap. Here's a snapshot of my path so far. I've been winning since I was 13 years old. I graduated number 1 in my high school class, and then I graduated from Yale with a 3.9 GPA. I landed a job in venture capital when I was 23 years old, and the first deal that I invested in, less than $1 million, ended up making my firm over $40 million when it was sold to Twitter 2 years later. I then went to Harvard Business School, and then I made the forward list of 30 under 30 for investing. You can see that I got really good at playing the game. When it comes to painting fences, I got it down. But it wasn't always this way. As children, we did what we wanted to do. We did what felt good. And then we grew up. As adults, we only do the things that are aligned with that story we're trying to tell the world about ourselves. And it's a normal part of growing up in our society. When I got to HBS, and I thought about, okay, I got it, I'm here. I promised myself this would be the last time I did the thing that would look good on my resume. And I said, okay, I'm here. And I reflected on what I want to do now that I achieved all the keys that I was told would open any door. I realized I didn't know what door I wanted to open. So I made it my top priority to spend my time at school figuring out what it was that I cared the most about. To find a new door, I had to detox from the old feedback loop of external validation, caring what other people thought. External validation, my path, that felt really good, but I was starting to rely on it. It was starting to become the only way I really knew how to feel good about myself. And I realized that we should be treating them more like cards, sprinkles on top, not the source of our self-worth. And in order to really rewire my operating system, I had to ask myself a lot of hard questions. Some of the questions that gave me the most value were, what am I trying to prove to others about me? And what does that mean I'm scared might be true about myself? And when was the first time I thought that? But for an 18-minute talk, that's a little much. So I'm going to ask you a different question today. What do you like and why do you like it? By February 17th, I want you to ask this question every single day for 2 weeks. And by then, you'll have a really good sense of what motivates you. Asking these questions is really powerful because it brings our subconscious to the forefront. And so much of our subconscious is unknown to us, and it's yet driving our lives. When I asked myself these questions, I started to notice when I was relying on external validation, doing the thing that felt good based on what I thought, versus listening to my own internal compass, which I call my personal why. And I noticed that the less I was able to rely on external validation, the more I could trust myself. I started to trust my intuition, and that led me to change my inner framework. Instead of asking, am I smart enough to get this opportunity? I asked, does this light me up? And instead of, can I get this? It was, do I want this? And I noticed that the harder it was for me to get it, the more I thought I wanted. I have to pay attention to that one, especially when it comes to dating. Self-trust is the key that unlocks your ability to live in your personal why. And living in your personal why is the most incredible feeling. And it's a sustainable one. The first time I felt this was when I decided to launch my nonprofit, So She Did, which stands for She Believed She Could, So She Did. I wanted to take all the advice that I'd learned the hard way about career, life, and love in my 20s and give it to my 19-year-old self. I wanted to help young women everywhere know what it feels like to believe in themselves and to experience the magic that comes from being in line with your personal why. When you're living by your internal compass and your personal why, you experience a high that comes from your self-trust. and a freedom to be fully yourselves when you stop self-doubting. A sense of possibility and endless serendipity. Wonder, enchantment, magic, all those beautiful moments we experience as kids, well, we can channel them again actually as adults once we choose to give ourselves permission to do something that lights us up. This is a path to being an entrepreneur in your life. It's an unpopular path because the other one is so well laid out, and it's passed down from generation to generation. I saw a lot of hands goes up about the entrepreneur question, so I think you're gonna be into these questions. If you're curious and you wanna know what your personal why might be, I'm gonna start with two simple questions. If you could teach every woman, man, and child one thing, what would it be? What would that do for them? If you want to reflect on these questions later on, write 3 pages stream of consciousness on this. These questions are meant to get at what you think would make the world a better place. If everyone had it, knew it, did it, what should there be more of in the world? What would make you even more excited to live in the world? When I answered these questions for myself, I started So She Did. I was at Harvard Business School at the time, and I looked around at my female colleagues. And if you'd seen their resumes, you'd expect them to be the most confident women you'd ever met. But I was surprised to find that they actually weren't. They were feeling pretty self-conscious. They were hard on themselves. They were feeling like they weren't enough. And this was especially true if they hadn't yet found a partner in life. What a distracting message, I thought, that we're taught when we're babies, really, that the key to living happily ever after is to find our Prince Charming. I was hanging out with my friend's 5-month-old baby, and her pacifier were a set of keys to the castle. 5 months old. And to find our Prince Charming, we better look our best. So that means that everything that is marketed to us is made to make us feel like we aren't enough, unless we buy that skin cream, those shoes, that dress. I thought, if this is how we feel, and we've achieved so much, how does everyone else feel? And that even means that for some of us in this room, climbing the corporate ladder is not how we define success. You can still be an empowered woman and choose differently. When I worked on getting my message out there, I experienced more passion, more creativity, more energy than I'd ever experienced doing anything else in my life. And I also realized, until I built So She Did, I had only ever brought 30% to the table. When you live in your personal why, the ideas are endless. When I worked on other work that I just wasn't passionate about, didn't really care about it, roadblocks became real challenges, and sometimes I wasn't sure if I could overcome them. But there is no stopping when your why is big enough. All right, heavy stuff. So when I asked myself, what's my personal why? I realized that my personal why is to bring magic to people. I want to help people access their magic. And answering these questions made me start my new movement, CAMP, which stands for Creativity, Art, Movement, and Play. It's essentially playtime for adults. I realized that adults don't make time anymore for fun, for play, to tap into the creative side. And so CAMP organized activities from improv to arts and crafts that are meant to help adults tap into their inner child and to grow through play. It's enjoying the mindfulness benefits without sitting still, but through play. The seed for CAMP actually was planted when I was a lot younger. I was only 7 at the time. It was 1994, and I lived in California in Northridge. Who's heard of the Northridge earthquake? Okay, yeah, so it was really bad. We had to move. Lived in a townhouse. It was all shattered and breaking and all connected, so you had to just move out of the whole thing. And so we moved into a new neighborhood. And I was 7 and really sad that I didn't have any playmates in this new neighborhood. So I decided to write a letter to about 30 houses that were all walking distance from mine. And I said, if there are any kids that live in this house, meet at my place. Here's my address, 4:30 p.m. on Friday. That Friday morning, I woke up and I said, Mom, I'm expecting some friends. And she's like, okay. I mean, at that point, I imagined her friends too. So she was like, all right, how many? It's like, oh, I don't know, maybe like a dozen. And she's like, okay, do you need anything? No, I got it. I eventually had 10 kids show up at my door on their bikes, and they were ready to play. So I ended up planning activities from pie eating contests to water balloon fights to just classic tag on your bikes. And I collected 25 cents from them for each activity. Yes. And so today when I tell my parents what I'm doing now after my path, I'm like, remember how I used to, organize play for kids? I'm doing it for adults now. And they kind of get it. So this is not a straight path. That voice that still likes external validation, it's still there. It's quieter, but it lives on. And anytime a venture capital firm reaches out to potentially recruit me, or anytime someone I really respect wants to co-found their new business with me, I hear that voice say, wow, they want you. That role is so prestigious. That would be so impressive. And then I have to quiet that voice and remind myself that I'm choosing to let my personal why be my new North Star. My North Star has led me to invest in founders who are also living in their personal why, and to coaching on the topics of career, life, and love, and to bringing camp to companies and people everywhere. So if you want camp at Bain, let me know. Every eye roll that I get from those painting a fence is evidence to me that my why is needed in this world. I've made a career so far out of investing in great, talented visionaries, great ideas. But I've learned that the most important investment that delivers the highest ROI is the investment we make in ourselves. I imagine a world of talented humans in this room today, you all living in your personal why. When I look at your eyes, I imagine how the world will look different because you exist. There is something in each of you that only you can create. And as an investor, I know that the companies that shine make their why part of their plan on day one. Make today your day one. I can't wait to see what you create. Thank you.